I was asked to join a local, I'm in Boulder, Colorado, a local Deep Ecumenism group that I think was, Rachel, you maybe correct me here, but founded by, or certainly they were instrumental in getting it going, rabbis Victor and Nadia Gross, who were both students of Reb Zalman Schachter. And this was maybe 6 months ago or so. And I told him right away, well, I'm not a cleric of any kind, so I think you have the wrong guy. And they insisted, and I've had it's been so delightful to be in this group of people who really, it really is an interfaith ecumenical group of people, and people with open minds, open hearts, big brains, lists of capital letters behind behind those names that humble me a bit. But it's just been so warm, and one of the real delights has been getting to know Dr. Wooten, and that's the last time I'll use that name. Um, Rachel, I think Rachel reached out to me one time and said, "Can we chat for a bit on the phone?" A bit turned into an hour, and it went by just like that. And we did it again just the other day. We might have done it one other time. I don't. My memory fails me these days, but it was just such wonderful conversation. We found so many points of connection. So anyway, I'm really happy that Dr. Rachael Wooten is with us today. As some of you know Rachel, she's been a Zurich-trained Jungian analyst, psychologist, working with clients for 40 years. She has roots in the Christian church. She has roots clearly in Judaism, deep roots in Tibetan Buddhism. So, among all of us in this little group that we have where we meet once a month, Rachel really spreads the widest wings, I think, and brings in a lot of different things. And I will stop here in just a second, but this is how our conversation went. This is how an hour went by so fast. I've been involved in and a student of civil rights since I was, 11 or 12 years old. And somehow I had missed reading Thurman, and I just wasn't aware. And Rachel brought that into our group, and it's been a real eye-opener for me and a real important piece of history in the American Civil Rights Movement, and the underpinnings of that are really deeply embedded in Christianity. So I was so appreciative of that. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and just turn this over to my friend Rachel and let her take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I am delighted to see you all, and I'm really glad to be here. And I want to say that when Jeff asked me to do it, because he had just been a member of the group for a little while, and I had been nagging this group of people, please, would you read Jesus and the Disinherited by Howard Thurman? I mean, this is a rambling group. This is going to be kind of a rambling presentation, let me warn you. But anyway, they finally did it. And I don't know if you were on that conversation where we were actually talking about Thurman. But one of the cantors who's a part of the group. So this is a group of people that, really is deeply ecumenical. That was one of Zalman's legacies. Said all these years I've been reading Amy Jill Levine, who's a very famous Orthodox Jewish woman who's a very well-known New Testament scholar. And they said all these years I've been reading Amy Jill Levine. All I needed to do was read this one book. I'm like, yeah, maybe. So anyway, I did not know that Thurman and Reb Zalman had this profound relationship. It was actually in this group that Victor Gross told me about that relationship. So that was an incredible moment for me, because in a minute you're going to hear about, how I met Reb Zalman, what he meant to me. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about his life story and a fair amount about Thurman's life story. Then I'm going to tell you about their meeting and sort of what came out of that. We'll just see how much time we actually have. So I will say that when I read this book, Jesus and the Disinherited, I was introduced to it by some people that I met 30 years ago. After I moved back from Zurich, I was in this group of people who actually were already interested in Deep Ecumenism. We didn't call it that. We called it the Interfaith Monastery Group, actually. So it was a Jewish woman, a Baptist minister, several other clerical types, and me, the psychologist at that point. So it's just kind of interesting that those people from 30 years ago were actually the people that introduced me to Howard Thurman 2 years ago, because they've kept meeting in one odd form or the other, and there's several Black clergy in that group. And so they brought Thurman to our group. And so when I read it, I'll just tell you, I was blown away. I'm going to read you a few passages from it in a minute and tell you why I was blown away. But it's been so moving to me. It's hard to imagine that I could feel so radically comforted and grounded by someone I never met. So to find out that he was just such a profound influence on Reb Zalman was really heartwarming and very affirming of my own experience. I'll say that. So let me just say, this is something, one of the women in one of my Tara groups is on this call, so she's probably heard me say this before. Jeff, you probably have too, but I often begin these kind of teachings with the Hebrew word Bereshit, which is the first word in the Torah. It's the first word in Genesis. And what Bereshit means is in a beginning. It does not mean in the beginning. It means in a beginning, which I would not know, except for I learned it from one of Reb Zalman's rabbis. And so I love that, in a beginning. And, you know, in Buddhism, what we really talk about all the time is beginningless time. Where are you going to find the beginning? You're not. So I just want to warn you, there are going to be a lot of things. I wanted to start in so many different places and I couldn't pick one. So you might feel like there are a lot of beginnings. All right. So one thing I want to say is, and I already said, you know, that I appreciate this invitation from Jeff. And one of the reasons that I've come to appreciate it is that I had read Peter Eisenstadt's, it's the most recent biography of Howard Thurman, and the reference for that is in the email that you got, you know, for this meeting. Happy to give it to you again. It's called Against the Hounds of Hell, A Life of Howard Thurman. Anyway, in that biography, which is several hundred pages long, he references Reb Zalman several times, and their meeting especially. I'm actually just going to read that to you. At one point in the biography where he talks about the fact that he contacted Reb Zalman to talk to him about Howard Thurman. And this was when Reb Zalman was really declining. And it was actually the same year that I had the last conversation with him that I was able to have. And he was getting through the gatekeepers, which is really hard because people were really protecting him at that point. And when Reb Zalman found out what Peter wanted, his quote was, "I will make time to talk to anybody about Howard Thurman." And when I read that, I thought, I really want to talk to Peter Eisenstadt. I want to know what it was like for him to have that conversation with Reb Zalman. And I will also say this, when you read that biography, and I really hope you will, it's stunning. It really puts Howard Thurman in historical context, but it's also Thurman's emotional context. It is not just reading Thurman. There's so much he wrote. There's so much that's been written about him, but I think this is the only thing written about him where you really get his emotional context. And anyway, it's just a fantastic biography. But I can tell you, I would have never said, I want to contact this man. Had it not been for the fact that Jeff invited me to give this talk, and I thought, well, hey, it would really be good if I could talk to him. So I sent him an email, and he emailed me back the next day and said, sure. So we talked for about an hour, which was wonderful. Peter Eisenstadt has been working on Howard Thurman's papers and work, et cetera, for over 25 years. You can really feel Eisenstadt's love for Thurman when you read the book. I asked, how did you get involved? He said, well, at first it was a job, but it would never let him go.